Hi, this is Peter Godinez, your host of Your Pivot Journey. And we have another great, interesting interview with one of my favorites. They're all favorites, but this one I'll get into and you'll see why. It's Jim Schankel. And I got to give you a little history on this. His profile, he'll probably deny it. He has been entitled one of the greatest distance runners from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, winning 8 national titles. But Jim went on and lived another life in regards to family and business and just general life. So for those of you who don't know Jim, and I'm sure all of you do, Jim Schankel, why don't you say hello to your fans?
Well, hello, everyone. I'm here to help clear up some past history of myself. I wasn't a coach. I wasn't a teacher. A lot of us that were great athletes back in the day became great coaches as well, modeled after Steve Miller. But I kind of picked a kind of a career like you, Pete, in the sales. I was in retail for over 20 years. I was in the car business as a manager for over 15 years. And I'm kind of semi-retired now. I'm working in an accounting office, believe it or not. I don't know why they hired me, but I'm just waiting for my wife to retire in the next year or two, and then we're going to be off and traveling.
Again, it's always interesting with you, Jim. So a lot of people, including myself, don't know your beginnings. And I had first got exposure to you probably on the early 70s. And, so I had the good fortune of also connected to Cal Poly. But, where did this all start? Can you talk about the family you grew up with and the people who were
Sure.
around you who were influential?
Sure. The reason why I initially joined the track and field and cross country industry was because of my brother, Rick Schankel, which graduated Lompoc High School in 1964. And he was like a number one runner. And I wanted to be like my brother, my older brother. I also was actually pretty good in running. I found that out like in 6th grade when we used to run laps around the field. And then in 7th and 8th grade, there was Terry Williams and Jim Warwick, which they were a grade ahead of me, but in physical fitness period, they always made us run a mile once a week. And Terry Williams ran, I think back then as an 8th grader, he ran, I want to say it was like 5:13, some ridiculous speed he had even in his early years. And I wanted to break 6 minutes. And if you got to break 6 minutes, well, heck, you got to wear gold trunks. Everybody else had to wear blue trunks. So I didn't break 6 minutes in 8th grade, but in 7th grade, but in 8th grade, I did break 6 minutes consistently. I think I might have run 5 minutes and 42 seconds, something like that in 8th grade. So that kind of prepped me for high school, where Terry Williams and Jim Warwick and Alvin Gilmore and Tony Nunez, all those guys were a grade ahead of me, but I did not make varsity my freshman year. But I did my sophomore, junior, and senior year. Had a really good time. Actually was a pretty good runner. And Terry Williams was a big part of that. He coached us. Coach Hyatt, which coached my brother, was our coach the first year. He left Lompoc High School for another industry. And then Terry Williams kind of took over as our coach my sophomore year and junior year. So yeah, he helped us keep up the outstanding work that Coach Hyatt did for the distance runners and the track and field athletes through high school. Once I graduated from high school, I got a partial scholarship to Cal Poly. And I went ahead and took it. There was other colleges that were interested in me, but I wanted to kind of stay close to home. I knew Jim Warwick, he was there. So I went ahead and accepted that. And my first year, I was not real happy, to be honest with you, Pete. I felt that the same thing that happened in high school was going to happen in college. And that meaning that although there was outstanding track and field coaches there at Cal Poly, their expertise was not really in distance running. And I wanted to have under my belt, I wanted to be taught by an outstanding distance runner. So after the first year, which I had pretty good success, I don't quite remember what place I was. I think I was second place in the nationals or something like that. But I went ahead and left and joined the service. I joined the Air Force. I became a firefighter for them. I actually ran for them a few times as well. And then about 18 months into the service, the Air Force, I received a contact from Steve Miller stating that he wanted me to come back to Cal Poly. And I told him, well, I have a 4-year commitment with the Air Force. And I guess he did some research or whatever. I had no idea, but he did some research. And if you could prove to the service that you had a better chance on the outside than you did on the inside of succeeding, then you could get an early out. So what that did is that Steve had to write a letter to the Air Force. I had to write a letter to the Air Force, and we ended up getting out early. I got out early enough to join. And also what happened too is when you do join the service, it kind of stops your eligibility time. So you don't have 5 years to complete 4 years. It just stops the clock. So when you get out of the service, then you can go and start the clock again. So that kind of worked out really cool. Needless to say, got out and started my career in college.
No, that's amazing. I remember you saying, I asked you about service, and I said, well, did they run you a lot? And it was like, no, the first day they had you run 1 lap. And the second day they let you the 2 laps. And I'm just thinking, yeah, you must have just tore those things up. So that was an interesting story. So now you're at Cal Poly. You got Jim Warwick there. You got Coach Miller. Eddie Cardenas too was there. Now, granted, he was a good player coach, if I can prove that, 'cause I'm sure Eddie's watching these things. But now you're there. So when do you think it all started to come together in this surge that you started to happen?
Well, that was the first time that I could remember that I had one hell of a coach. And Steve was able, for whatever reason, he was able to get me to do things that I would never want to do, probably could do, but never wanted to do. Repeat half miles. What? Are you kidding me? His training and his ability to motivate you was just unbelievable. And that's what made me excel. His ability to not just motivate me, but motivate the team, and the team to come together, and the teamwork that we had and the fun we had, and just the winning we had was just one on top of another was just unbelievable. It was kind of like, if you wanted to say anything, I know runners get into a flow state. Well, the whole 3 years that I was competing at Cal Poly, that whole 3 years was a flow state. Everything came together very well. The team, I liked everybody that we ran with. We did an outstanding job and had a lot of fun doing it.
No, you need to share your favorite stories. But again, some of my quick favorite stories is Coach Miller would be kind of like skipping happy, after practice. And I go, what's with you? And he'd go, I just pissed Schankel off, and man, he ran like a madman. I go, okay, well, we're using the technique of getting people mad to make a run. But do you remember that actual technique he used on you?
Well, I don't know how he did it, to be honest with you. He would make me a little bit upset sometimes because of the amount of work that we had to do. But after I got done doing it, it just gave me that extra confidence that you needed, when you ran, and just him being there and with his little timer, walking the field, clocking you. And it's just, I can picture it still today. He was just a great motivator, and you respected him very highly.
Yeah. And, it's my view being somebody who, I ran the 1500 meter in the decathlon, but my observation was, Jim, you were like the alpha male in the midst of all these studly distance runners. And you're going to be, oh, no, that's not the truth. And maybe it's the clarification. But even to interject the females we had a good opportunity to train with, they were all watching you, and kind of there's this intimidation factor of saying, we got to keep up with Jim Schankel. And Jim Schankel is yelling at the team. We better keep up with him too. I mean, so, talk to us about some of your subconscious leadership skills that you had during those time frames.
Well, I think, and you're right, it was subconscious. When I trained, um, my goal was to finish practice as fast as possible. When I ran in the morning, I usually worked out twice a day, usually 5 to 7 miles in the morning, and then I'd end up getting around 5 to 7 miles in the evening, with the workouts included and all that. I just wanted to do everything I possibly could to get practice over. Not that I didn't like it. I just wanted it over. So I trained hard all the time, whether it was just jogging in the morning. Well, it wasn't jogging, because when I trained, my mileage, when I went out for a run 5 or 7 miles in the morning, my mileage was averaging under 5 minutes a mile, just training, going out for a run daily. I was fortunate that I didn't get injured in all of Cal Poly's time there, and I'd had the ability to continue these hard workouts and hard runs, day in, day out, 7 days a week. And I think if anyone would say anything, is that their motivation that I gave them was how hard I worked out. And I did work out hard. And again, the motivator was to get the work done. I wanted it over with. Not that I didn't enjoy it. I enjoyed it, but I wanted to live the college life too. So, so that's what I think, as far as, being a motivator for some people. And the other thing is that I really didn't care about who I ran against. I didn't read track and field news. I didn't watch who's doing what. I just did what I could do and what our team could do. And that's what I focused in on.
That's beautiful. And, I had asked for feedbacks from your teammates, and one person responded back with one of your favorite memories. And it kind of shows you, Jim, you're like a force. Had you been an MMA fighter, you would have kicked everybody's gluteus maximus minimus. But Stan Hawkerson shares a story of you guys running, and you just went a crosswalk, and you basically just stepped on a car, ran on top of the car to get through, just to keep the practice going, So I laughed at that. So I don't even remember that, but it's a testament to the force that you were, and nothing was going to get in the way of a Testarossa car. I don't care if I dent this thing. I'm training. But do you remember something like that? I mean, do you remember the feeling of just saying, you wanted to get it done, I understand, but you were a force. I just wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, I do. Actually, I do remember jumping on the hood and running across the hood. I was known, probably happened maybe a half a dozen times in my career, where cars would pull out in front of us and they were at the stop sign and we were running, and I just slapped the hood. I got another story, and this actually happened in college. I was running, and this car pulls out, and I go ahead and slap the hood. Well, the car pulls up in front, and out pops this lady, and she comes running toward me, swinging her purse like she's going to hit me. And I'm laughing. And all I did is just sprint. And she just turned around and ran after me. I put my hand out, the purse wrapped my arm, and I threw it up, and it got caught in a tree. I just kept running. That was a pretty funny thing that happened, training one day in Cal Poly.
Well, I'm glad you had some fun in the intensity of the moment.
Absolutely.
And you know what? Lots of people in the distance run, including the ladies, actually talked about the camps that you go to in Tahoe, and trying to keep up with the Shankles of this world. But it's just like, I got to remind you the effect you had on people. And yes, maybe some of this was all subconscious, but you could tell people were watching. Jim, don't you think?
I never noticed. I really, when I got out there and I ran, I did what I wanted to do and how it made me feel, and how it made the team feel. I really was not in tune to what other people were thinking. I had a job to do. My job was to be the best I could and to be the best team player I could. And that's what I focused on. If I could do it all over again, I might do it all different. I don't know. I don't
I
know.
don't. I hope not. But
Uh,
just for this interview, just to recognize you, and yeah, you didn't recognize it, but this interview is kind of honoring you to say that, Jim, you did have a big impact, on people, and not only just the men, but just the ladies as well. And I always think that the elite athletes, yeah, you had, and again, being a decathlete, you had to train with everybody. So you had the jumpers, you had the sprinters, the hurdlers, that type of thing. But the distance runners were like a cult, Jim, in my mind. And I'm sure you can go through the list of people who you train with. It was like, for me, it's just like, and I showed up, they all looked at me like, why are you here? Do you have a membership? Is your dues up to date here? Get out of here. If you don't have treats, get out, because we don't want you, because you're a wussy guy. So, that's, again, you probably didn't notice that, but the distance runners were like, again, the alpha section, and you were the alpha male in the midst of that.
well, I think,
So
a lot of that happens because, as distance runners, we didn't do all our work on the track. We're out running trails, we're out running the roads as a team, and we had the track and field atmosphere a lot of the times, but we had to put in our mileage, and a lot of that was obviously taken outside the track.
it's perfect. So, let's you transition into career. I'm actually interested in you talking about, your family. I know you work for Athletic Addict. Was that one of the places you worked
Oh
with?
yeah, long, long, long time
Long
ago.
time. So that's
You're trying to test my memory here.
I test my own. But it's just kind of like with the remaining time, just talking about career is one thing, but I've said this to you a few times, but I'm just so proud of the citizen you became. You have a family. Why don't you talk to us about your family? I had the good pleasure of at least seeing your technical advisor, but she's also your wife too. Can you
Yes.
tell a little bit about the family that you built along the way?
Yeah, I'm a wife of almost 18 years. So my career was mainly in retail. I spent over 20 years in retail. I don't know if you remember a company called Just for Feet, which
Hmm.
was the largest athletic retailer in the world. Unfortunately, they went under, uh, but I worked for them for 12 years, I believe, 13 years. Stayed in the retail for quite some time. After that, I got into the car business. I was a car salesperson for 1 year, and after that, I was promoted to a manager and stayed in the car business for about 14 years. Um, Good money, but a lot of hours. Never had weekends. Never had nights. It was a pretty tough thing, and so I kind of got out of that. And then I started working for a company that does some services for apartments as a district manager. I did that for a couple of years. Now, currently, I'm working in an accounting office for a car dealership company. Don't don't tell me why they hired me in accounting, but because math was not my forte. But I'm doing that right now, waiting for my wife of 18 years to retire, and we've bought some property. We're going to build here, and it's probably break ground in the next year or so. Finish up the build of the house, and then move out there permanently. It's a place called New Ulm, which is you probably wouldn't know it, but it's close to Brenham here in Texas. So my wife and I, we met dancing, um, salsa dancing, believe it or not. She thought this white boy couldn't dance. Uh, so she went ahead and said yes, and the rest is history. She's actually in the car business. She's in HR and been doing it for quite some time. We have two kids, Austin and Danielle. We just became grandparents 3 months ago in a few days. Actually, that's where my right now. She's in the other room babysitting our grandson. Danielle had a baby 3 months ago. And my son, he's living here in Houston as well. Bought a house, has a serious girlfriend, and is doing very well as we speak.
No, thank you for the update. I'm sure a lot of people did not know that. I knew eventually you were going to have kids, and I'm sure they're wonderful. Maybe some of them chose distance, And again, back to your career, what I take from this and people listening was Jim Schankel, even as a runner, he had a job to do. And then when he transitioned that in a career, he took that and he did everything he could, working long hours, giving up certain time frames. So
Sure.
definitely, obviously, Jim, maybe you should have said that. But what I gleaned from that is basically you took that and had a successful
Well, yeah,
career.
that's what running did. Athletics in general, the dedication you have to have in order to succeed and be good. You have to put in the time, and that's the same way with work. You know what athletics taught me. One major thing is that hey, you have to be dedicated. You have to spend the time. You have to do whatever it takes to succeed. And yeah, that the cost is it does cost you a lot of hours and time away from your family, but it's worth it. I'm almost retired. I'm only waiting for my wife, and we'll have another great many years together.
Wonderful. Again, just with the last 2 minutes we have here, Jim, if there's anybody you want to do a shout out to or something you want to razz, let's have some fun with maybe somebody you want to point out. You keep in contact. So a lot of your distant runner friends are watching this, but how about a little tidbit of entertainment in that area?
Oh, I couldn't do that to anybody, but uh, I just talked to Jim Warwick a couple weeks ago, and I've talked to Danny a few times, and of course we had that reunion in Las Vegas several months ago. It's good. This Facebook thing is it's positive. Of course, it has its negatives,
Mhm.
but it has kept us in touch. And you and I have talked several times as well. I do want to say one other thing,
Please.
and one thing, if I had to regret anything I did in college, it would be not running the 1,500 meters more. I don't know if you know that I only ran the 1,500 meters competitively one time. And that one time I ran 3:41 and some change. I think that's still second on the all-time list. Of course, Danny has the number one spot there. But, after that race, I was just shocked. And I ran it like a 5K. I ran it with only kicking in the last less than 200 meters, where, in the 1,500, you really need to kick almost the entire last lap, which I had plenty of stuff left over. But, that's my own. I wish I would have ran that a little bit more. But, I had a great time, in college, and I would not change anything whatsoever.
Yeah, and I hear you because the amount of people, there was you and there was Danny Aldridge and even Vernon Celez who hated the 1,500 meter. It was
Yeah, I
still,
did.
really good. You had Joe Fabrish, who was one of the people who actually ran a under a 4 minute mile. And man, the celebration, he almost killed Danny Aldridge, afterwards. So, the people you were around, so I can understand. But, it kind of shows you were good at so many things. Did you actually run the 800 meter?
Never ran the 800.
So 1,500 meter, 5,000. I think you tried to steeplechase it one time.
I did.
But
And, I didn't do very well.
well, because you didn't like to get wet. That's what I heard, but that's a rumor. But
I
with
think I
that,
was more of a rhythm man.
you know what? Coach Miller, I might edit this one. I don't know. But the way he described you at the reunion, he wasn't sure if you were a good looking white male or just a funny looking black gentleman. So I hit the ground laughing. So if that's was racist, I'll delete that. But with Jim, with that, thank you so much for taking time and just sharing this with your audience, the people who love and care about you. And so with that, I'm just going to sign off and say thank you, Jim Schankel. And until next time, this is Peter Godinez with Your Pivot Journey. Goodbye.
Bye.